Last season saw the return of Mick Claridge's dominance in this historic race car. But despite a romp to the championship title for the Englishman, other drivers have clearly upped their game in response. With a clean slate at hand, will the increased challenge mean our champion meets them head-on, or crumbles under the pressure of being the man with a target on his back? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round one of the Lotus 49 World Cup. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, round one takes us here to Japan for one of the free tracks on iRacing. But for our viewers not on the service, tell us a little bit about Okayama.
Yeah, today, Joe, we visit Okayama International Circuit, located in Mimasaka, Japan. Now, contrary to other racetracks, Okayama isn't that old, as the circuit was opened less than 30 years ago in 1990, originally designed as a private racetrack for the wealthy Japanese. If you don't know the track from, for example, Super GT racing, you might know it from past Formula 1 races. The open wheel cars visited the circuit, then known as TI Circuit AIDA, in 1994 and 1995, with Michael Schumacher winning both events. This made Japan one of the only 7 countries ever to host more than one event in the same year. And the track hosts a combination of 11 turns over 3.7 kilometers, which the drivers will lap 22 times today. Okayama is a track where patience is key. The track surface is slippery and the corner exits aren't always straight, making it more difficult to get on the throttle. Combine this with a lot of short straights and you have a track where you really have to wait for a mistake of another driver to make a pass. Consistency will be key out there, and to give the viewers an idea of how to tackle this track, not only consistent but also quick, let's hop on board our GSRC LOTUS 49 for a lap around Okayama.
All right, we've got Ben Zoko in the GSRC LOTUS 49, so let's do a lap around Okayama. Coming down into turn 1, this is going to be one of your best opportunities for a pass. Just be sure not to turn in too early to this corner, because on the exit, you won't have much time to get back across for Williams. It's just a quick squirt on the power, and then you're threading the needle through this off-camber left-hander. It'll take a gentle right foot to find the throttle again and avoid looping it. But the Moss S won't allow you to take it flat out all the way up to Atwood. That makes it surprisingly tough to execute a pass into here, even though it's a hairpin. But much like the last corner, you'll be feathering your way onto the gas all the way up the hill. The opening radius of the exit makes it especially precarious. Those who can feel out the grip and find a better launch will be in a much better position to defend or attack into the hairpin. Other than the front stretch, this is the next most common place for overtakes to happen. If you're defending, consider the banking on the outside though. Keep alongside your opponent, you've got the inside for revolver. That is a very tricky corner to go side by side through, trust me. Then, as you plunge downhill, you swing it through Piper. The pit buildings leave very little room to the outside for runoff, so try your best not to get it out into the grass. From there, you've got a little blast into Redmond. This kicks off the painfully slow back and forth into Hobbs. It's very tough to gain time here, but it's oh so easy to lose a bunch if you botch one of these. The low gears means it's best not to mash the throttle too hard on your way out. You'll need a bit of brake into Mike Knight, let the car drift out, and then set yourself up for this last corner. Obviously, a good run is going to be critical because of this leading up to the first turn, but hopefully you've kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Okayama.
Should give you a good idea of how tricky it is around this slippery circuit. Now, we mentioned that last season Mick Claridge was our victor in the F1 championship. Let's take a look at the top five and how they wound up, because it was an interesting championship to say the least. Ove Trangrade took second. He has really stepped up his game. We were talking about that before the broadcast. He's quite fast now, and definitely a challenge for Mick. If Mick slips up in any formal way, Ove is there to pick up the pieces. Ben Zocco, probably the drive of his season, with third place in the end. And then Michel Dudignon, a lack of participation really is what did him in. Just didn't have the time last season. He winds up fourth. And Billy Bob Wright gets a nice top five. I'm sure he's going to want more as he has finished higher in previous seasons. Now, there was also a Formula 2 championship that we kept track of, sort of an amateur championship. What's that look like, Johan?
Yeah, that one was almost more exciting than the actual Formula 1 championship. The Formula 2 championship in the end saw Hideki Koivisto from Finland as the winner with 141 points. And behind him, Matt Wright tried to pursue him all season long, couldn't close the gap in the end and finished in second, with Eugenio Massa finishing on the final podium position. Andrew Ng came home in fourth in the Formula 2 Formula 2 championship, and a really heavy battle for P5 in the last race at Monza was in the end won by Don Good, who came home in fifth, 102 points shy of the winner.
Bit of a decently long lap around here, so we still don't have any times on the board. So why don't we take this opportunity to familiarize any viewers stepping in here for the very first round of the season of what we're in for today. So obviously round one, but it's 12 rounds in total, with this being official racing. And it's 22 laps. It's a lap limited race here in the Lotus 49s is how they do it. It is open setup. And of course, that means that they can tweak the cars as much as they want. And there you see at the very bottom how they score it. Not quite like how they did in 67, but that's to give everybody the opportunity to try to score. And they also kept track of what they call a Nations Cup, basically a Constructors' Cup here. What is the results of that, Johan?
Well, with Mick Claridge dominating the Formula 1 season, there can only be one victor in the end. The United Kingdom beating the United States and Australia for the P1 title in the Nations Championship. Finland and Norway had a heavy battle at the end for P4 in the championship. That was in the end won by the drivers from Finland, overtaking Norway in the last race at Monza to come home P4 in the Nations Cup.
Up at the top right now, Mick Claridge with the fastest time. And he has certainly got some competition. They are splitting the championship. They're doing a combined championship this season. Instead of the Lotus 79 guys like last season, it is the Lotus or the Spec Racer Ford series that they are sharing it with. Much slower car, also a little bit difficult to drive in some similar aspects. It takes a bit of getting used to, like the 49 does. But clearly, we are in for a very interesting championship here, Johan. David Gaspers is putting the squeeze on Mick.
Yeah, and I was following David in the practice earlier where he clocked a lap time in practice almost half a second quicker than Mick Claridge. Now, David is not able yet to replicate that time in qualifying and put his car on pole position the first race of the season. But like you say, a lot of quick drivers coming over from the Spec Racer 4 Championship to the Lotus 49 Championship. Another one is P5 at the moment, Dimitrios Houdeludis. He has set a 1:29.0 at this moment, just a little bit in front of Dave Price. Now, Dave Price, maybe the viewers from last season still remember, Joe, was one of the drivers that was fighting for the win, or at least for podium position every single race. So, yeah, first appearance for Dimitrios in the Lotus 49, and he immediately puts himself in front of drivers that were fighting for the top steps of the podium last season.
We just watched David cross the line for a second lap, but it was not faster. So he's going to have to settle for the second row at most. And checking to see if anybody still has their second lap to go. Seeing a few drivers towards the back. One of our newcomers, Jason Perry, still out there. We're looking at Gary Teal on the screen at the moment as he comes across for his second time, and sitting in 11th, and now he's up to 9th though with a 1:29.4. That is still a second off of our fastest time, but quite a few drivers, a very large field for the Lotus 49 today. Do you think that's going to play into a little unpredictability out here, Johan?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the gap between the quickest and the slowest cars at the moment, there's a 10-second gap to the absolute slowest. Maybe Chad Burke had a slightly off lap time, but the drivers who had probably a regular lap, there's still a 5-second gap. So I predict that the leaders will catch traffic before the end of the race. Johnny Bell on screen now coming out of the last corner, finishing his second lap. He did a 32.0. He does a 32.4 now, doesn't improve on the second lap, so he stays 23rd at the moment, Joe.
And that's going to be the last of our drivers able to get a lap in, so our grid is set. Let's go through our starting order. Mick Claridge on the pole once again, but it's going to be a harder ask today, we think, based on what we've seen in practice. David Gaspers completing that front row. Ove Trangarade starts in third. He is probably desperate for a championship at this point. Fourth will be Nicola Kochi hanging around for the Lotus 79. He must like this car still. Dimitrios Houdeludis, we've seen him in the Weekend Warriors in the SRF. He starts fifth. He looked much faster than that in practice. Let's see if qualifying just isn't his forte. Dave Price will start in sixth next to him. Matt Wood will begin in P7 with Michel Dudagnon all the way down in eighth. Unusually low for the Frenchman here at the start. Gary Teal will be ninth, and then rounding out our top 10, Johan, will be Billy Bob Wright.
Yeah, Marco Kika is the driver in the double one position, starting on row 6. Next to him, Matt Wright. Richard Morin basically splitting the field in P13, and he starts in front of Jason Perry. Benjamin Soko, now that's a name that we saw fighting for P5 positions last season, all the season long. He only starts the race in 15th, and just in front of Antonio de Marchis. Stef Veenhoff from the Netherlands begins the race in 17th, and he starts in front of Tony Theolis. The last two drivers in the top 20, Joe, are Andrew Eng and Hideki Koifisto.
Raymond Smith will begin in the blackjack spot with Don Good next to him in 22nd. Johnny Bell was only able to get 23rd on the grid with Gary Anderson behind him in 24th. Jeffrey Eli in 25th, followed by Chad Burke in the 26th spot. Robert Reynolds in 27th, and Junior Lino starts in 28th. One of the largest fields we've seen in a long time here in the Lotus 49. Let's see how that plays out as they start to grid up. Here we see the drivers now bringing them out to the line. Everybody checking to make sure that they have the right setup in the car. Critical that you don't leave the qualifying fuel. There are no pit stops in this series. No scheduled pit stops, at least. If you are in the pit lane, something has gone seriously wrong. They go straight from the start to the finish. Hideki Koivisto, of course, running his traditional Jordan scheme on the car. Glad to see that one return, as brings a little bit of modern flavor to this old 60s machinery. Just waiting on one last car to grid up. That would be Ove Trangarade, and then we will get the green for 22 laps here for round 1 and the Lotus 49 World Cup. It is season 3 in 2018. We've Had this car for 5 years now on the iRacing service. Everybody out there, which means the engines start to rev, the lights come up. Green flag is out and off the line. Gasper's looking very good compared to Mick Claridge. He's already looking up the inside. Can he get it far enough to try and go for the lead? He's forcing Mick Claridge to take a wide line around, but the track is going to switch back at Williams. Can he hold him off? That's the question. A little bit too wide for Gaspers, maybe. Still side by side as he's got a nose in through the Moss S. It's incredibly hard to go side by side through here. Finally, he backs out Johan. He is on the go.
Beautiful start, really exciting all the way in the front. Nicola Cocci behind him had a horrible start, immediately got overtaken by Dimitrios, almost by Dave Price as well. But Nicola is fighting his way back, currently side by side with Dimitrios, getting back into P4.
Price giving a watchful eye back there, seeing if he can get a spot from all this battling. Dimitrios on the outside. He could still fend this off around this corner. I've seen passes not work, but this one definitely did, as Dave Price gets himself into the top 5.
Two guys that I see a little bit driving behind are Don Good and Gary Anderson. I think they had some trouble. Junior Lino also in the gravel at the moment, but it's not bothering the drivers all the way in front. David Gaspers putting the pressure on Mick Claridge in this infield section, getting really close to the gearbox of the British driver. Not any contact between the two, however, as they are almost completing lap 1 of the race.
Clearly, David thinks he's got something in him here at the start of the race, as he is challenging Mick at almost every corner, and Mick knows it. He goes defensive down the front stretch, hanging back a little bit. Trangrade just giving a watchful eye, seeing how this is going to play out. He's racing with a new driver here. Don't know if he's gotten an opportunity to get a run in with David earlier in the week. Regardless, definitely not as familiar with Gaspers as he is with Claridge.
Look how close David Gaspers is. This is probably very tactical from over Trangrade. Just stay behind, be in the popcorn position, let these two drivers fight it out. And maybe when the two of them break each other out, you are the one that can sneak up on the inside and get that P1 position. David Gaspers having a great run out of the corner there onto the back straight, Joe. He's looking it on the outside. Mick Claridge defending the inside, but I think that once you have the inside there, it's difficult to hang it and pass on the route around the outside.
Yep. Just a good defense from the Englishman is going to hold Gaspers back for now. The DH driver will have plenty of other opportunities. This is backing him up a bit, though, as not only Trangrade, but Cocci has rocked up to the back of this group, making it a 4-car train for the lead. We can stay with this, but just a note, I went back and looked at Lino. He outbraked himself into the hairpin on that first lap, so really not worth going back and taking a look at the replay. He's back going again. Going to get another chance down the front stretch if Gaspers can get himself a good run here. I know we're watching the leaders quite a bit, but this is the first time in a while we've seen this close of a fight here for the lead. And I think David is just a little bit too far back this time.
Yeah, he probably has to stay, bite his moment for now and try it another time out of the hairpin coming onto the back straight, because last time around it was so incredibly quick there. He takes a different line now, earlier to go on the gas. Look at him, he can put it side by side in the S's. Very courageous from both of them. David Gaspers lifts a little bit to let both of them lift. Mick Claridge defending the inside, that will hurt him on the back straight. Ooh, I think they almost touched there, Joe.
I thought they did touch. It was awful close. Oh, and he gets on the power a little too hard. David Gaspers is going to lose out what was a fight for the lead. Now means second place potentially lost as the Norwegian tries to go the long way around to the hairpin. This hasn't worked for a number of drivers so far, and it doesn't work for Ove. Now he's on the defense with Nicola Cocci, looking to try to get the spot away, but that bright yellow machine can't get it.
Behind him, Dave Price is also under heavy pressure by Dimitrios Houroulidis. Dimitrios has been trying moves for the past 2 laps, but not able to put it past Dave Price. And that move from over Trangrade has caused him to back up to this battle for P5 and P6.
Wait, credit to these SRF drivers. They have taken to this car like a duck to water, as we've seen a number of very fast drivers come in here in the very first round. So it didn't take them long at all to adapt to this low downforce, high power machinery. Michel Dudignon down in 8th, which is just incredible for me to say. last season, you noticed that Michel was much better than Mick at this track. It seems that the roles have reversed.
He was almost a second quicker per lap than P2 in the race at Okayama last season. So I don't know what happened. Maybe Michel de Dion didn't find the time to practice as much as he did last season. Had to jump in basically cold in the new car starting season 3, but he doesn't have the pace that he had last time around. He's putting the pressure though on Gary Thiel, trying to move one place forward to P7 and maybe closing the gap to Dimitrios a little bit. At the moment he takes a little look, but he was too far behind to really send his car side by side there. I think the Frenchman has to bide his time and slowly find his groove, because he was so quick last season, Joe. He has the talent to drive at the front. It's just not coming out today.
Could be the weather conditions potentially, is this car a little bit sensitive to that. Just an update, we don't have to go to it, but Tony Teolis lost 2 positions with an off in turn 1. Didn't hit anything, just returned and shook off the gravel. As we continue to watch Billy Bob Wright, another driver we're used to seeing a little bit farther up, down in 9th, but hanging with the Frenchman, which is a good sign for Billy Bob Wright, at least, is usually not quite as fast as Dudagnon.
Up the front, David Gaspers once again really close to Mick Claridge. They had contact, slight contact in the very slow last part of the circuit. A little bump on the rear of Mick Claridge. No damage, and both drivers are able to continue. Once again in turn 2, Mick Claridge chooses to have a very shallow entry, and that hurts him a lot on exit. But David Gaspers not able to put it side by side this time through the S. It's really close between them once again through the hairpin. Mick Claridge sliding maybe a little bit more, and again David Gaspers struggling to get the power down. This is a different car than the SRF. Very difficult to get the power down, but he is able to try and move on the outside now. Once again, Mick Claridge defends the inside, and probably if Mick Claridge just slows it down, he will stay there. He shoots through a little bit. David Gaspers tries the undercut, but not able to make it stick before they enter the infield section, Joe.
He's trying everything, but boy, is Gaspers pushing the envelope on the exit of Atwood, and Matt Wood has had an issue. Last season, a driver who was challenging for wins, and I think he took a win, in fact, lost it on the braking down into the hairpin. Looks like he lost a little bit of connection in there, and so we can't quite get the replay, unfortunately, but he did lose a number of positions. We see Wood continues in 20th. He did make contact with the wall, unfortunately.
Over Trangerate still biding his time in P3 behind the 2 battling Leeless. David Gaspers last lap around, try to move, put the car side by side going into the infield section. Had a little move in one of the 2 hairpins, but didn't make it stick.
Bad news for Chad Burke. Unfortunately, a bit of an error out of Atwood. We might have to stick with this, actually. Excuse me. We'll come back to that replay in a second, because once again, we have Mick Claridge on the defense. Now, this is where we see Gaspers really creeping up to the edge of what's possible. And once again, that car just squirming around, but he's not losing time, Johan. I can't believe he's getting the exit he is with that car getting sideways.
I think that might be a little bit of experience. Maybe that's the experience that Mick Claridge had. He told us last season, I think, that he has won 9 championships in the Lotus 49, an incredible amount. And just out of that hairpin, the most important part of the track in this car, he is able to just slightly be more smooth on the throttle than David Gaspers is. And that's helping him, because I don't think that he is quicker than the German at the moment. The German on his tail within 2 seconds, basically from start to lap 6 at the moment. But that little thing that Mick Claridge has, just being able to go smooth on the throttle out of the hairpin, that's helping him stay in front today.
It's really backing up a Trulli train as well. It was 4 cars a moment ago. Now Dave Price is getting close to these guys. He drops off a little bit as they pull away on the front stretch. But I'm starting to see a little bit of desperateness come out of David Gaspers. He's been looking in much more difficult corners to pass on, poking his nose out. Maybe getting a little bit out of sorts, trying to find an opportunity that isn't there.
No, because you are quick. He knows that he's quicker than Mick Claridge, and you don't want to put yourself into that rhythm that is slower than your actual pace. You want to be able to enjoy that free space, enjoy the speed that you have, and create the gap to Mick Claridge. Oh, both cars! Very loose. David Gaspers touched the grass there, and that will maybe give a chance to over Trangerate, who has more speed now. doesn't dare to put his car side by side. Nicola Cocci behind him, trying to move over Triangulate. And oh, just too little to put his car side by side. But that is something that both cars have to watch out for as well, getting loose and then touching the grass. Because if you do that a little bit heavier than David Gaspers just did, you might end your race in the wall.
Director, do we have time for a replay for onboard Gaspers out of Outwood? I can't believe he held that car together. Oh, wait, he gets a good exit, and Mick Claridge gets a bad exit coming out of Redmond. But no, very difficult to pass through those double hairpins, and he holds them off for now. I'm not sure if we're going to get any replays in this broadcast.
Now, but what you say, that's exactly the thing with Okayama. This track has 4 hairpins, and once you're on the outside of any of those hairpins, it's virtually impossible to make a move stick there. What David Gaspers got really outbraking, trying on the outside there, behind him. Over Tringer, gets hit by Nicola Cocci.
Dave Price manages to get through. We do have at least a brief respite here to try and get that one on camera. Cocci maybe getting a little bit too caught up in the action happening in front of him and gets into the back of Traeger. Traeger collects it together, doesn't lose a spot despite going off track, but Dave Price definitely takes advantage.
I almost have the feeling that Nicola, as we go on board through the incident, that maybe he lifted after the contact to give over Traeger his place back. Dave Price did manage to get past the Italian.
Didn't miss a pass there for the lead. They're still going at it, though, as Gaspers and Mick Claridge now have a bit of a gap back to third thanks to that incident. It's still Trangerade back there, but 1.5 seconds between himself and the German.
At the moment, it's a 4-car battle for that P3 position. Dimitrios Houdouloudes has caught up to the back of Nicola Cocci, trying to overtake the Italian there. But that 4-car battle that we just saw for the lead is now just 2 positions down. Nicola Cocci getting a very bad slide through the penultimate corner there, and that causes the Greek driver to immediately catch up to him.
Certainly trying his best to try and make good on this, but he's not close enough. But it's a battle for the lead the long way around. I think Gaspers may be trying something a little sneaky here. If he can hold on side by side out of that first corner, he'll have the inside of Williams, Johan.
Yeah, he does, but it's difficult. It's a corner with a 110 degree radius, and trying to die on the outside is just so incredibly difficult. You have such a shorter run as the driver on the inside that should be able to. He once again takes the look. He has to lift, steer away, and drive a little bit over the grass, and that will cause David Gaspers not being able to make a move this time around in the hairpin. I think that David Gaspers kind of just has to surprise Mick Claridge on the inside once, because I don't think you can make a move stick against Mick Claridge on the outside here.
All right, now that they're separated a little bit, we have a battle for 12th. Richard Morin under the attack, and actually Matt Wright manages to get by 2 regulars in this series down in the hairpin. Probably the first time we've seen a successful pass there through that in this race. And they've now got Ben Zocco behind them, making this a 3-way fight for 12th position.
Ovid Trangerade in that battle for P3 has driven away a little bit from Dave Price. Now we saw for several cars catching up to Ovid Trangerade a few laps ago. Dave Price was the first car that stayed a little bit behind him, slowly catching up. But I think that Dave Price is currently holding Nicola Cocci a little bit back to try another move on the Norwegian. The battle for P1 is still going strong, though. David Gaspers once again so close through turn 2. And Mick Claridge having a great run now, better than he did a few laps ago when he took a much shallower line exit speed. This time he's quick enough to make sure that David cannot try a move here in the hairpin.
You know, Mick's a smart guy. I kind of wonder if he's been seeing Gaspers. Oh, and did something happen to Cocci? He is losing positions. In fact, he's getting passed by Dudagnan on the backstretch. Got a replay.
I think he missed his braking point because he bumped into the rear of Dave Price. That's also joined maybe in the middle of the corner, but he bumped in the rear of Dave Price. Doesn't seem to have too much damage. Is still able to continue.
Go side by side with Dudagnan right now as we come back live. Now he finally gets by them. They were fighting hard through the hairpin, but it looks like the Italian is able to at least consolidate 7th place. And interesting note about the leaders is they are now still very close here. They're coming back in the front stretch once again. It seems like Gasper's much better on the brakes into turn one. Do you think maybe Mick is backing up some of the corners, thinking that Gasper's is having a hard time getting the power down out of the corners?
Could be that Mick is trying a strategy like that. But look at the moment on the outside. Now David Gaspers has him. Oh no, he brakes too late this time around. Not able to make a stick. That was sniffing from P1, but not able to grasp P1. Mick Claris just trying to sell David a dummy there by jumping on the brakes earlier, and it almost worked. Sending David all the way to the outside of the track. I think you're right, Joe. I think that Mick Claridge is driving very smart here, trying to maybe play a little bit of mind games with the German driver, because he sees that he is better on throttle out of the corners, and he's trying to capitalize on that as much as he can.
Once again, can't get him down into the hairpin. That's the closest we've seen David come to this lead as he almost makes contact. For our viewers new to this series, this is incredibly uncommon to see this much car-to-car contact in the Lotus 49. These drivers may be bringing a bit of that closed wheel mentality of the SRF over here, but it looks like you seeing a bit of action down in 12th here, Johan.
Yeah, just still a heavy battle going on as well in P12. Jason Perry is having a nice scratch with Matt Wright there, as they're currently going through the infield section. I don't think they'll try and move there, but Matt Wright had a horrible exit out of the hairpin onto the back straight, and it almost cost Jason Perry to make a pass, but the two stayed behind each other in the end, however. Good scrap here. The two of them are currently 8 seconds behind Marco Kika, a driver that we haven't talked a lot about today, who's currently in P10. But these two drivers are fighting as they are fighting for the victory for the P11 spot.
Things are getting interesting up in the lead, because not only are they still fighting side by side, but they've got Junior Lino lap traffic up ahead of them. Is that going to possibly play into effect? Could David Gaspers use him as a pick to maybe finally get by Mick Claridge? They are approaching very fast. Lino pulls up to the outside. Nice job by the back marker to get these leaders through. And once again, Gaspers just can't seem to keep the car straight coming out of Atwood.
It's almost like he has to try a slightly different line through that last corner, or through the hairpin, just trying to maybe take it a little bit more straight, so he's able to put the power down a little bit easier than he currently is, because every time he just has that little wiggle on the rear that loses him slightly too much traction to try and move on Mick Claridge.
Well, we feared the worst coming in with 28 drivers being much higher than most of these guys are used to in the Lotus 49, but we still have 27 cars on track now that Matt Wood has returned. Chad Burke, I think, our only DNF, and that is impressive. In fact, 24 are still on the lead lap, and we're halfway through this race. That is a good sign that not only do we have drivers showing up that are clean, Johan, but fast.
Yeah, especially these drivers are putting a great show out there today.
This is the first time he's on the inside. David Gaspers, this is what he's been wanting. He gets to the nose end. Can Mick Claridge hold on around the outside of turn one? He is trying. He's got it for now. It switches back into Williams. Side by side, he has a big slide, and this time the grip on exit goes to David Gaspers. It took him 12 laps, but he's finally done it.
Yeah, that must feel like justice for David Gaspers, because he has been quicker. He slides once again through the corner. And now here you have to show that you're able to lead through the front, David. He has a wiggle on the exit of the hairpin that causes Mick Claridge to catch up. Is this enough for the British driver to immediately take back the P1 position? David Gaspers defending the inside. Mick Claridge sending it on the inside. Both cars sliding, but not enough for Mick Claridge to try and move.
Just a little bit of a desperate lunge, but he knew better than to get into the back of the newcomer. David Gaspers, your new leader here with 10 laps to go. Trangarade has not dropped off, we should mention, even though he still is about a second and a half back. He is holding pace. All he needs is these two to battle a little bit more, and both he and Dave Price could be back in this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Another nice battle. We're seeing Nicola Cocci is right on the back of Gary Thiel at the moment for P6. Nicola Cocci, that was fighting for a podium position, fell back earlier in the race, is trying to fight his way back up the field. He was coming out after his little spin, Joe, just in front of Michel de Leon, but he's already gapped the French driver by almost 1.5 seconds. So the Italian driver having a good day out there. He's trying to move right now on Gary Thiel into turn one. Gets the inside. Oh, he hits a little bit.
Yeah, just banging wheels, and Gary gets out of the way. So the Italian does get himself into 6th, but not with without a little bit of car contact. And I wonder if that actually hurt Gary Thiel, because he's dropping back fast, and now Michel Dudignon all over the back of him. In fact, he looks up the inside, maybe a little bit too hard as he goes through the grass, and the Frenchman has to wait, as Gary Thiel must have some sort of suspension damage with that side-by-side contact.
Yeah, unfortunately. Let's see if he... It seems like he's suffering under braking. He brakes a little bit earlier than Michel Dudignon, the French driver, able to catch up a lot under braking. If he continues, Gary Thiel, will be interesting to see if he's able to keep several drivers behind him, who scores still a nice batch of points. Because with only 9 laps to go on this track, you might still... It's not Monaco, but it's still very difficult to make an overtake here, Joe.
Absolutely. Behind them, we may have gotten a little glimpse of Marco Kika trying another very difficult move on Billy Bob Wright. But the postman, unfortunately, didn't pull it off, so he stays in 10th. Now, the bad news for Mick Claridge is David Gaspers has just disappeared up the road. He is already a second up, and it's only been a couple laps. In fact, he just set the fastest lap now that he has been freed. I think Mick Claridge can kiss this one goodbye unless David makes a major error.
Here's something might have happened with Benjamin Soko. Oh, yeah, he's crabbing down his way into the pits.
Oh, no, he had some contact with Richard Morin. This was into Redmond. You see as they come out of Piper, this is where the contact happens here. Down into the hairpin. Morin outbrakes himself a little bit, tries to stay out of the back of him, touches that suspension, and poor Benjamin Soko comes out the worst of the two.
It didn't look like that much of a hard hit, to be honest. I think I've seen other hits this race so far, but just, yeah, hits it on exactly the right spot, and that's race over for Benjamin Soko with a damaged suspension out there. Gary
Thiel and Michel Dudignon side by side once again. Remember, Gary dealing with an ill-handling car, we believe, and Dudignon going the long way around of Redmond. If he can hold on, it'll switch back in his favor. And I think he's going to seal the deal in Hobbs. Oh, wow, very aggressive by Thiel, squeezing him down, and that's going to deny him the spot. So Gary Thiel really not willing to give up anything here.
And look at Billy Bob. He's enjoying this battle because he has immediately caught up to the rear of Michel Dudignon's car. Billy Bob might be able to leapfrog both drivers for a P7 position.
He is licking his chops for sure, sitting back there watching these two duke it out back and forth down into the first corner. They're going to stay line astern. The order 7th to 9th is Thiel, Dudignon, and Wright.
Another battle that we're seeing, following Billy Bob a little bit more, not able to make a move before the hairpin.
Oh, no, sorry, that was lap traffic. That was Robert Reynolds getting out of the way. Sorry. Nicola Kochi has been trying to get on Dimitrios Houdaludis there, and I thought maybe they were passing a car for position, but they were not. They are trailing Dave Price, not too far behind, but that could change if that bright yellow car starts to go on the attack on the Greek. On Greekman? But
something like that.
Yeah.
We saw Billy Bob Wright trying a move on Michel Dudignon in the background there. He didn't make it.
Oh, Dimitrios losing it with a little bit of contact into Redmond. That's the second time we've seen that into that corner. Obviously, drivers having a little bit of difficulty trying to stay out of each other in the more technical parts of this track, and Nicola backs off a little.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it has been frenetic. We're already down to 6 laps to go as the Italian recollects himself and sees what he can do on Houdaludis as they work their way through Williams. Unfortunately, we have had a few more DNFs. Eli, Zoko are both out of this race. Anderson and Wood should be able to collect those positions. So only 3 DNFs, I believe, at this point in the race.
A little update that I wanted to give is for Mick Claridge. He was overtaken by David Gaspers. The UK driver is currently 2 seconds behind the German driver, but he's not sure of P2. Ovid Stranglerate is slowly gobbling up the gap between the two. At the moment of the overtake, when Mick Claridge was relegated to P2, the gap was 2 seconds. At the moment, it's less than 1 second.
Kochi had another try into the hairpin, but it didn't come off. Dimitrios doing a magnificent job defending at this point as we ride on board with the 5th place driver, looking back at Nicola Kochi. You get an idea of just how bare bones these cars are looking down the fuselage here.
De Jong on a heavy pressure with Billy Bob Wright. Billy Bob Wright sending it on the inside, but not able to stay there. Michel De Jong tried a move on Gary Thiel on the first hairpin of the infield section. The two had contact there, and that might have damaged De Jong's car. He's struggling out of the last corner now with Billy Bob with a lot more speed. Might be able to take a move. De Jong defending the inside. Billy Bob having to take the outside under braking. He's not as confident as the French driver, but look at the gap that both have lost immediately to Gary Thiel in front.
Well, the Floridian's got to be smiling from ear to ear, thinking, I'm battling with Michel Dudignon right now. And looks like he might be able to pressure him into a mistake with the way that we've seen Michel just off his game today. Takes a peek to the inside down into Atwood, but not a serious attempt. Has to wait patiently through this hairpin. If he could just get the power down, and unfortunately for him, it looks like Michel is a little bit better on the grip.
Yeah, he is. Billy Bob Wright not able to be as smooth as Michel De Jong. Try and move in the hairpin here, so he probably has to stay another lap behind the French driver. Now behind him, Marco Kika is also just taking a look, waiting, biding his time to try and move on Billy Bob Wright and even Michel De Jong for P9 and P8 going forward in the race.
And the car that you see behind Miko is Matt Wood. He is a lap down, multiple laps down, so he is not in this fight. He's just waiting patiently, trying to finish the race, maybe get a little bit of safety rating. But Marco, obviously, licking his chops a little bit here, seeing if he could pick up something if these two tangle. In fact, he's not too far behind Gary Thiel if he's able to get by them.
No, exactly. Gary Thiel is enjoying this battle, though. The contact between Gary Thiel and Michel De Jong has really cost De Jong a lot of time. But it seems that De Jong is able to gobble it up ever so slightly and fight his way back to Gary Thiel. The heaviest battle that we're currently seeing in the top 6 is the one between Dimitrios and Nicola. With only 4 laps to go, Nicola has to think about making a move. He's trying it here on the hairpin, taking a look inside, but not able to pass Dimitrios. That's the lap traffic of Gary Anderson that they're both passing.
This gives an opportunity, though, to Nicola, maybe trying to use him as a distraction. Defensive move from Dimitrios down to the inside into the hairpin. A little early on the brakes, though, on the racing line for Nicola Kochi. Too late on the brakes for the Italian, and he's going to have another try later as he slides wide.
Yeah, well, with only 3.5 laps to go, this is the time of the race that you have to try that move. You're currently 3 seconds in front of Gary Thiel and 4 seconds behind Dave Price. So for both drivers, this will probably be the last battle they fight out here today.
And this, as was mentioned by Johan, the closest fight we've got in the top players. Everybody else really spread themselves out now that Gaspers has gotten past Mick Claridge. And in fact, Gasper sets another fastest lap up there. He is flying 1:28.7. It's only 0.2 off his second place time on the grid.
Another battle that we're seeing just outside of the top 10. Matt Wright and Jason Perry are still battling hard, but Kochi is trying to move on Dimitrios.
Yeah, on screen, side by side through the Moss S. We've seen how difficult this is before, and Nicola is the one that is braver through that back and forth. Can he hold on to it, though? As he goes to the line, he gets tipped around. Dimitrios makes more contact as cars dodge and avoid around the Italian. He finally gets going in 10th. We've got the replay. Thought this was a done deal here, Johan.
I think that Nicola, as you said, overshot his corner slightly, tried to defend the apex, but also Dimitrios overshot the corner, just outbraked himself, turned Nicola around. Now all the work that Nicola did Gary Thiel in heavy battle with Michel Dudion defending the inside. Behind him, Billy Bob Wright taking a look. Dudion sending it on the inside. Dive bomb. Gary Thiel defending on the outside. He makes it stick. Oh no! Sending Dudion on the wall.
Into the tires, the Frenchman goes and loses multiple positions. He's down to 9th. This is the most aggressive battling I think I've ever seen in this series. Look at this. Contact once and then contact twice.
I have the feeling that Gary Thiel had a lot of oversteer, and that sent him maybe into Dudion out of that corner.
I've used it before, but I have no other way to describe it. Just desperate lunge from Dudignan there into Redmond. Oh, wow. That has got to be just a frustrating day in general for Michel Dudignan. This does promote Billy Bob Wright up into 7th. Remember, they've got Nicola Kochi that they've overtaken now because of his issues, as well as Dudignan. Now down to 2 laps to go.
Michael Kika profiting from that as well, being sent up to P8, and this will be a good battle for the last laps between Gary Thiel and Billy Bob Wright for the P6 position. Over Trangerate was closing down on McLaren's the last laps, but he made a mistake coming onto the back straight last time around. He's lost a lot of seconds at the moment, 2 seconds behind McLaren's. With only 2 laps to go, I don't think the Norwegian will be able to close that gap.
You can see that with how close things are back there as we watch Ove Trangerade work himself into a nice podium today. I'm sure he would have wanted more, but gotta respect that. Billy Bob Wright maybe thinking twice with the way that Gary Thiel unfortunately caused Michel Dudignan to go off track. He's got to wait for the right moment. Gary has really been defending hard but fair, I should say. He's really on the limit, but I haven't seen anything untowards quite yet.
And one thing that might be a factor in this last lap battle is that Gary Thiel had several car contacts during the race. His suspension might be a little bit bent, but look at the gap between the two at the moment, over half a second. I don't think Billy Bob is close enough to try and move at the end of the back straight.
Yeah, indeed. It is the final lap, and David Gaspers, once he got ahead, just never looks back. Almost 5 seconds between himself and the man who has dominated the Lotus 49s for many years now, Mick Claridge. That says something, putting a stamp on this one. If David sticks around, we could see a new champion crowned this season. He's got a little lap traffic in the form of Lino, who pulls completely off track to let him through. With this green and black car, suddenly a major player. First round in, final corner, and onto the straight. The start-finish line looming ahead. David Gasper wins the opening round here in the Lotus 49 World Cup.
McLaren coming home in P2 over Trangerate, celebrating his podium position by going very wide through the last corner. It almost causes Dave Price to overtake him. Over Trangerate coming home in the final podium position. Dimitrios Houloulis coming home 1 position behind him. Now a battle that we saw in the last lap, we didn't see it on camera, was between Michel Dudignan and Nicolas Cocci for P9. Michel Dudignan going wide into turn 4, the hairpin before the back straight. Nicolas Cocci able to overtake him, and the Italian comes home in P9.
Respectable finishes for a number of drivers. Perry getting 12th out there today. Nice mid-pack effort. Richard Morin as well. Usually tends to be a bit of a back marker in this series, but look at this, 13th. This is a great finish for Richard Morin, I have to say. Hideki Koivisto as well, taking 14th out there. Newcomer Veenhoff going to get 15th. And last of the cars coming across the line. No real battles out on track, unfortunately. So with that, we're going to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, because on screen you're going to see all of the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Okayama. We just watched round 1 in the Lotus 49 World Cup. And it might be a little bit too early to say, but based on what we saw, I think we have a fight on for the championship. David Gaspers came away with the win, and it might be by 5 seconds, but it certainly wasn't that far apart for most of the race. Claridge did his best to fend him off. Couldn't in the end. He does get second place, though, to limit the damage. Ove Trangrade with a nice podium spot, barely finishing ahead of Dave Price, who gets fourth. Dimitrios Houdaludis, he saw a lot of battling today as well, but gets a top 5 for his efforts. Gary Teal limps it across the line for 6th, just ahead of Billy Bob Wright, who takes 7th. Marco Kika gets an 8th place today. That is actually a brilliant effort from Marco. He has improved a lot over the years in all the cars we've seen him race. Nicola Kochi, unfortunately a bit of a sloppy race for him today. He's going to take 9th. And Michel Dudignon, surprise of the race, finishes in 10th, Johan.
Yeah, P11 is Matt Wright. Now, if I calculated correctly, that's P2 in the Formula 2 category behind Billy Bob out there today for Matt. Jason Perry comes home in P12 after a heavy battle with Matt Wright, just in front of Richard Morin. Hideki Kofisto was one of the hard chargers out there today, gaining 6 positions during the race to finish the race in 14th position. Steph Veenhoff, we haven't seen him a lot on screen today, but he gained 2 positions and brings his car home in 15th position. Tony Teolis and Antonio De Marchis had a heavy battle off screen that was decided in favor of Tony Teolis today. Tony grabbing P16 before Antonio in 17th. Raymond Smith gained 3 positions to come home in 18th position. Andrew Eng started and finished in 19th, and the last driver in the top 20, Joe, was Johnny Bell.
Don Good gets 21st today, with Robert Reynolds finishing in 22nd. Junior Leno, a little bit off pace, but he did bring it home. He gets 23rd. Gary Anderson behind him in 24th spot. Then we get into DNFs, unfortunately. Matt Wood, 25th. Jeff Eli in 26th. Ben Zocco, this has got to be disappointing for him, 27th today. And Chad Burke, going to be the last of the field in 28th. This large field was topped by David Gaspers, jumping over from the SRF and finding himself competitive out of the box. David, are you surprised that you were able to compete for the win in the first go, or did you expect that today?
I knew I had good pace around here, but I didn't expect it to work on the first try here.
Now, had you watched any of the races or been aware of kind of who the established players were in the series? Did you know anything about Mick Claridge before you came in?
Yeah, I did 2 races last season, and I looked at the statistics, so I knew he was really good in this car.
And certainly held you off for quite a while. We saw the car wiggling around quite a bit under power. Is that something that you consider yourself still learning in this car, is figuring out the throttle, or is that just pretty much run-of-the-mill for you?
That's not really a problem. Before coming to iRacing, I had a lot of open wheel racing with a lot of power, so I'm kind of used to it.
You made good use of it. It was an impressive drive, really taking on the established drivers. Are you going to go for the overall championship here on the broadcast races, or are you not thinking about it yet?
I'm definitely going to do the full season. If I have a chance at the championship, it would be great, but I'm not sure yet. I'm still new to the car and only have driven it on 3 tracks so far, so I don't know about the other tracks.
All right. Well, we'll see how you fare over there. Today, you fared pretty well. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
That was our winner, the German David Gaspers, taking on the Englishman and coming out on top. I believe up next, Johan, you've got said Englishman waiting to talk to you.
Yeah, said Englishman came home in P2 out there today. Mick Claridge, welcome. Good that you joined us once again in the booth. Now, there was a great battle that you had there with David Gaspers for the lead. You started the race in pole position. You finished home in P2. Are you disappointed that you couldn't keep David behind him, or are you happy that you managed to finish second?
Oh, can you hear me all right, Johan?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, no, basically what it is Mr. Gaspers there is the new iRacing AI program. And we set him up at about 107% there, so we're going to have to dial him back down again, you know, for the next race. So he's sort of on our pace, you know.
I see.
No, it was great trying to hold him back there. I know I mean, my qualifying lap wasn't that good. And I was shocked when I saw I was on pole. So I know everyone else must have messed up their laps because I was nowhere near fastest today. Uwe was faster than me today. He was catching me. He was just, I was lucky he just decided to do a bit of pre-checkered flag drifting, you know, behind me in the mirror. So yeah, no, but yeah, I knew I had it in my head that David was going to get past. Yeah, I mean, drivers like that, he's a hell of a driver, that guy. So he's been fast all week. I've been watching him, you know, in practice, met up with him a couple of times. Yeah, it's great to have these Spec Racer 4 guys come in this season. It's just what the series needs, you know. And it's not only David that's quick, you know. There's a lot of them that are bloody quick drivers, excuse my French.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. The battle for the lead hasn't been this diverse, if I say so. So a lot of names at the top. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about is the battle that you were having, the defending battle. Because what was exactly your strategy? It seemed like it was just making sure you had the inside as much as you could. So whenever David wanted to try a move, he had to swing it past the outset. Was that the thoughts going through your head?
Yeah. I've done quite a lot of practice this week because it's if I can take anything away from this weekend and this race is I don't think I'm that good at this track really, you know, compared to a lot of the tracks I like. You know, I don't dislike the place. I'm just not that consistent at this place, you know. And so once David was on me, I was like, you know, like you saw, just trying to defend on the insides and sort of try and guess where he was going to be faster than me out the exits. But I mean, in the heat of the battle, I really overheated the front tyres, and I was having to really nail the gas just to get the back to swing round on some of the exits. So yeah, so I was really, really struggling to keep him behind me.
I see. Well, one of the things that we mentioned, at least, or it seems from the booth, that was that your strong suit out there was getting on the throttle. So you seem to manage that very well during the race. Now, David is, of course, one of the drivers that came over from the Spec Racer Force. Just one question before we let you go: are you going to drive the SRF this season as well, next to the Lotus 49?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in it as soon as I can. I'll probably do some races tomorrow if there are races tomorrow. I haven't even looked at their schedule or anything, but yeah, if there's some races now until the track changes, yeah, I'll jump in and have a go.
Great stuff. Well, thank you once again for talking with us, Mick. Congratulations with P2 in the end, and we'll hope to see you again next week.
Yeah, cheers.
It was Mick Claridge, the British driver, coming home in P2 out there today, just behind David Gaspers. Now, in the meantime, Joe, you've caught up with another driver that we've talked about quite a bit today. You've caught up with Billy Bob Wright.
Indeed, the Floridian, a little bit farther down than he might be used to. Billy Bob, you guys invited a whole slew of SRF drivers, and seems like
they showed up.
Seems like they have adapted quite well to this car.
Yeah, not surprised. When I first got on the service many years ago, the Spec Racer Ford was one of my favorites because it's a car that you really drive on the throttle. I'm sure, Joe, you've driven it, and it's so fun to drive. Because it points itself and it rotates on throttle so well. So I'm not surprised at all that these guys came over to this series and were quick right out of the box. And really nice to see, man, such a full grid. Just really excited to have those guys over.
And you gave us some excitement in your battles today, but you had a front row seat to one that we were watching very closely, Gary Thiel and Michel Dudignon. What is your take on the incident that sent Michel backwards?
You know, it was a really hard racing battle, and they were both given and taken as hard as each other. So I think that was really just some really super hard racing. And I almost, you know, I was in the popcorn seat, as they say, and I was just waiting. And I thought going into the second hairpin in the back of the track that I was going to get by them both and be able to get away, but Gary held on to the thing. I was shocked to see he could get it off the corner as well as he did. So, you know, it was just hard racing. I really enjoyed watching it. I was really concerned about, I think it's Kiko was behind me, and Kika, and man, he was just sitting waiting for the last few laps the whole race, and I was very surprised to stay in front of him at the end there. I overheated the tires, Mick. I want to thank Mick for a great set, and but he was right. The tires were sensitive, and you had to be really careful or you'd overheat them. So I was very fortunate to hang on to that one. I'm happy with that.
Interesting that you were more looking behind, because after Gary and Michelle were done, obviously, then it was you behind Gary. did his defense make you a little circumspect in your attack on him?
Well, I can't say a thing because Gary and I both basically defend our positions. I mean, when you're running lap times so close together, I don't have any problem running shallow entries and things like that, just to make sure he understands I'm going to fight for the position. And Gary does that exactly the way I do. So I knew it was going to take a mistake from him. I kept trying some stuff to try to make him lose concentration, but he's a seasoned veteran. I knew the chances of that happening were slim. And again, with Kika behind me, I was really focused on making sure I didn't give him an opportunity because I knew he was just biding his time. So I was trying to run a defensive line when I really needed to be putting down some quick laps up, the backside of Gary. Didn't work out, but still, I'm thrilled with 7th, man. I came in here thinking I was going to get waxed, and really happy with 7th.
Well, glad that you're satisfied with it. You've clearly got a lot more people to fight with this season, and hopefully we'll talk to you some more times.
Hope so too, guys. Looking forward to this season. I think it's going to be a good one. So right now I'm headed to watch the broadcast. Have a good one. See you soon.
Too. That was Billy Bob Wright, 7th place finisher today. One last quick interview we've got time for. The Italian that we saw quite a bit, Nicola Cocci, is talking to Johan van der Belt.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. One driver that we saw basically all minute long on the broadcast. Nicola, you came home in P9 today. How was it out there for you? Was it fun to battle these cars around Okayama?
Yeah. First of all, I'm disappointed by my race because I qualified okay. I think that the qualifying was on my pace, but right after the start, I started to have this issue, this random frame drops, that it made my driving a lot harder, and I was keeping, misjudging reference, and that made me, a little bit of a reckless driver, a little bit, because I hit too many guys too many times. Yeah. So I really apologize to Owe, Dave, and even Dimitrov. But it was very hard to stay on my pace. But luckily, on the end of the race, the issue faded a little bit away, so I was able to push again. And on the last laps, I had this overtake by Dimitri, and but he hit me in the back, and he apologized for that. But I owe him some apologies as well. So I'm a little bit disappointed because on paper I was half a second behind David. So I had a shot to get a podium, but the real world is always different. That's the number on a piece of paper.
Exactly. Well, it's a shame to hear that you had so many technical difficulties out there today. Still, you had the speed out there. That must be very promising going forward. Next week we visit Sebring in the 49s. Will you be there once again?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be there. But unfortunately, this issue, it seems that came only on official race. So it's very hard to investigate, but I have to do that because otherwise it's going to be not a pleasing driving for me. But yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm actually kind of satisfied by my pace overall. I mean, but yeah, I still have a lot to learn to keep enough safe distance, because the nose is a lot longer than I thought it is. So I was keeping, pointing, touching too much. I have to, get a little bit used to race alongside people, because this is a very, very particular car that needs a little bit of, of a learning process.
Absolutely. Well, one question before we let you go is, like, you had the speed out there today. As you said, you were fighting for podium positions. Do you have any goals for yourself in the 49 Championship this season? Do you want to finish top 5, top 3? Are you going for the victory? What is really the thing that you aim for out there?
Well, no, victory, I think it's a little bit too much for me, but I think I would be happy to finish top 5 overall. But you know, it's very early to say that. So I just wanted to keep my head down for the first race. You know, first 5-10 race, something like that, just to see what is going to be like. Don't want to take too much risk, just like I did today. But my goal was that of stay out of trouble and see pace wise how I was falling on the line, and I think I will do the same on the next few races to see what's my place, and just try to not ruin everybody else's race.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for talking with us, Nicolas. With your speed and hopefully the lack of technical difficulties, the next week you'll surely be fighting for that top 5 position.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you guys. Bye bye.
That was Nicolas Cocci coming home in P9 out there today, Joe.
Yep, and it's good to hear that whenever a driver apologizes and owns up to various incidents, it's always great, the sportsmanship that we get to witness here in the Lotus 49. It's kind of one of the key features to me of this group. But we have to close up, so a big thank you goes out to Ben Zoko, who helps organize the group together to get these broadcasts to air in the community each season. And thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go out to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget, head on over to our YouTube page, and there's a big red button that says subscribe on it. Make sure and click that, and you won't miss a moment here on the GSRC. The next race, as Johan mentioned, we are going down to Florida, to Sebring. That'll be Saturday, June 23rd, a week from today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.